Hello there, it's Christian Youngren with Kaizen Automotive Consulting, bringing you more best automotive practices. In this edition, we're going to show you how you can ask some sensitive financial information surrounding your guest trade-in, all in a natural, organic way by simply using your appraisal form. Now, if this is your first time to our channel and you want to improve your automotive selling skills, learn how to use psychology to close more car deals, and receive unbiased dealership vendor, product, and service reviews, make sure you go ahead and subscribe, and then turn on the bell so you never miss out on learning anything new. Okay then, let's go to work. I think it's safe to assume that just about every dealership in the free world has some type of an appraisal form, an evaluation slip, whatever you want to call it, that they use during this step in the automotive sales process. Now, speaking of the appraisal step in the automotive sales process, it's an excellent opportunity to do several things. Now, maybe you remember, but a couple weeks ago we did a video on how to use the appraisal step to actually mold your guest perceptions when it comes to their expectations about what to expect for their trade-in. Now, I'll leave you a link to that above. Today, I want to talk about how to use the appraisal step to ask some sensitive questions, some questions that may be considered taboo, things you wouldn't want to ask early on in the sales process. However, at the appraisal part of the sales process, it's natural and it's the right thing to ask. In fact, it would be silly not to ask these questions. So what are some of these questions? Well, one of them would be the payoff. Now, as I'm filling out my appraisal form, it's natural for me to ask how much their payoff is. Have you checked on your payoff? If they don't know, we'll call and get the payoff, but that would be a natural time to ask for the payoff. An unnatural or a time that actually might be a turnoff and a taboo time to ask that question would be early on in the sales process, during the meet and greet, or even the investigation, or even the presentation. I mean, until we know the guest has selected a vehicle, it's really irrelevant at this particular point. Another question I like to steer clear of prior to the appraisal part of the process is the payment. What are your currently monthly payments you're making? Now, I know some salespeople out there like to know both, the trade and they like to know the payment early on. They've asked that as a investigative question. Why? Because they don't want to quote unquote put the guest on too much car. So they're trying to quickly in their head calculate if there's negative equity or if they've got some positive equity. And then they're assuming that the guest's probably not going to want to go a lot higher than the payment they're making, or they'll just flat out ask the guest how much of a payment they want to make, which again, I think you're going to get lowballed, and I think you're going to set yourself up to go ahead and chase a payment that the guest is asking you to be at. However, they've got certain needs and wants that they want on this next vehicle, and trying to match those two up can be very difficult. So I'd much rather go ahead and just find out their needs and wants, find the vehicle that I feel is perfect for them, or they feel is perfect for them, because let's face it, they're the ones selecting it, and then seeing how the payment lands there. And then using some different techniques to possibly find some different areas of budget to go ahead and help them find this vehicle and make this vehicle a little more affordable. Another question I ask right after I ask what type of payments are you making is, gosh, how'd you get it like that? Now, the reason that's a great question is because you didn't say, gosh, that's a super low payment for that vehicle, or gosh, that's a super high payment. You just said, gosh, how'd you get it like that? And then you can be quiet and let them go ahead and fill in the blanks. They may say, yeah, I know that is a pretty good payment on a Ford Explorer. I mean, $400 a month, we thought was a really good payment, but we went ahead and put $5,000 down, and we went to 72 months, and we had a clear trade. Or maybe they're trading in, we'll say, a Ford Focus, and they're making $400 payments on that. So when we say, how'd you get it like that? They go, oh gosh, yeah, you know what? I got divorced, and I had a bunch of negative equity because he or she stuck me with this vehicle. So I went ahead and traded it in, and this is the only thing I could really get at that particular time. So again, you find out some pretty good information. The next thing I want to know is when they purchased that vehicle. So how long ago was it? And then you'd follow up, depending on the answer, with, say, for instance, they tell you they bought the vehicle a year and a half ago. Gosh, you say, gosh, you're in here trying to trade fairly quickly. Let me ask you, was there some life changes that made this vehicle just not fit your needs and wants anymore? Or was it perhaps you just didn't like the vehicle? So you find some good information out there. The other question that you want to ask is, when's their next payment due? Now that's just simply to know when they're currently making their payments, I guess when they're used to making that payment. And plus, if they're making a $400 payment and the guest, say, maybe has $500 to put down, well, they could possibly, if they've got a payment coming in 4 or 5 days, they could put the payment of $400 down as well. So now they've got $900, and then maybe they just go ahead and just kind of cap it off with an even 1,000. So now we've got some money down when the guest only had 500. Now we've got a little more down. Did you buy it new or used? Another good question to know the answer to, because you can follow it up with, gosh, is that the normal pattern? Do you guys normally buy new vehicles? Or is that the normal pattern? Do you normally buy used vehicles? And you may know this already, but if you don't, it's a great time to go ahead and, I guess, double check or just make sure you've got that info. If they've got a new vehicle and they've never purchased new in the past, then I definitely want to make sure I tell them about what I call the peace of mind package. Peace of mind package, I'll go ahead and leave you a link to that video. We've got a video above here I'll put that's got an answer to that. But the peace of mind package is simply the full warranty. So for instance, if we're talking about maybe a Ford Chevy, a 3-year 36,000 mile warranty. I think the Ford's got a 5-year 60,000 mile powertrain warranty, and it's also got a 5-year 60,000 mile roadside assistance package. And while these warranties are valuable, they're not free. They come with the vehicle. They're part of the price of the vehicle. So to go ahead and show value, we need to make sure they know about those, because if they've always bought used in the past, they probably bought as is or with some limited warranties. Now, if they're moving over to used for the first time, we definitely want to make sure that if we don't already know this, we want to make sure that they've got some peace of mind about that used vehicle. So we tell them about type of warranty that is available on that vehicle or that you offer on that vehicle, or at least the inspection process and how that vehicle was looked at so they feel like it's a sound vehicle and it's going to go ahead and last. Another question that's a great one to ask is, how much did you finance? Do you remember how much you financed last time? And the reason why, again, that's a good question to ask is if there's been 4 or 5 years since they purchased that vehicle, the payoff may be less, or your hope is the payoff's a lot less than the original amount financed. However, the original amount financed is good to know because, say, for instance, they are making payments of $400 a month on a $2,500 amount financed. Well, after you present the figures and you come to the conclusion that they're roughly going to finance around $40,000 on this vehicle, for them to expect another $400 payment is kind of going to be something that's not going to be in the realm of possibility, right? The law of mathematics just is going to win out, and it's going to be difficult for you to fit that square peg into the round hole. I mean, again, you can't fight the law of mathematics in some situations. Now, the last question that I like to ask, the last couple questions I like to ask, center around to help set me up for some different closes and help find some different ways to maybe find some budget for the guests so they can go home in the car they really want. So one of those questions that I like to ask that helps set me up for another close would be, what have you done in the last 12 to 24 months maintenance-wise to the vehicle, repairs to the vehicle? And the reason for that is because I want to be able to possibly do a maintenance close, which will help me find a little bit more budget for the guest, and that way they can afford this monthly payment on the current vehicle they're looking at. And then I want to ask about fuel economy. Are you happy with your current fuel economy? Now, most guests, even if that isn't the overriding factor of why they're purchasing this vehicle, it's still important. I mean, who doesn't want to get a vehicle that'll help fit their needs? Say, for instance, I want a truck because I want to be able to haul things in the back, and I want to have a truck because I just think it looks cool, and it's one of those things that I think the style and appearance is nice. Well, I'd still like to get good gas mileage. So knowing those types of things, what we could do is set ourselves up for a gas mileage close, and that will help find some more dollars in their payment and find some more dollars in their monthly budget. I'll leave links to both of those payment closes up above. I think it's all actually on one video, so I'll just leave it above. Now, the very last question I like to ask is just a simple one that you may have already asked early in the process, but it's kind of a double check. So it's something that I like to ask at the very, very end, and that is, would you buy it again? Why? Why or why not? Good question to ask, good information to know. So a lot of people ask that as an open-ended investigative question, and maybe you did. But if you haven't asked, it's a good time to ask right now. Well, there you have it. How to gain some sensitive financial information about your guest's trade-in while picking up a few pieces of information that could help you with some different closes, some ways to find money in their budget that maybe they didn't think about. That way they can go home in the car they really want.